You're looking at buying a new press. You've narrowed it down to two different ones. The Lee Pro 1000 or the Lee Classic turret. Now, if you want a quick answer, I'm going to tell you right now, get the Classic turret. After loading both of these presses for about 4 years, I have probably 6,000 rounds on the Pro 1000 and about 4,000 rounds on the Classic. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of kind of my experiences with the two. Now, we'll start with the one that I bought first. That is the Pro 1000. This one's in 357 Magnum. And let me give you some pros on this guy. It's cheap. Price new, $200. Comes with dies, everything you need to do to set it up and start going that day. Well, if you're lucky that day. And it's faster. I will say, this is a progressive press, and you can shoot out about 100 rounds an hour on 357 Magnum, or about 200 rounds an hour if you actually have it set up on 38 Special. So this one I have on 38 Special, and I can load 357 Magnum. When you load 357 Magnum, it's kind of more of a single stage, but if you're actually using the progressive with multiple shells in the shell holder, about 200 rounds an hour. That's all the pros I can say for the Pro 1000. The Classic, my personal favorite, the one I wish I had just bought in the beginning and only had one press, this guy is a lot better. The build quality is way simpler. You got a piece of steel right here, you've got some pillars, and you've got your turret. And that's it. This one, you have a complicated shell holder that you have to index, and it's a pain in the butt to get it indexed. And you have a even more complicated, and I think the Achilles heel of the entire press, the primer feeder, which uses this little camming system right here. It works, kind of. This guy, the Classic, to change calibers takes about, 2 minutes, especially if you have two hands. One hand it might take a little bit longer. You pull out the turret, you've got another one. These shell plates cost about $10. You take your new one, you set it down, and you are ready to go now. That's it. That's all it is. Maybe you might have to change out your shell holder, which is just held in there with tension, but it just pops right out, and you pop in your new one. The kit on this one came with everything you need to change calibers. So the change caliber on this one costs the price of the dies. That's it. On this one, you'd have to change out your dies, which it only has 3 versus 4. You'd have to change out your shell holder, which would be a pain in the butt. Let me tell you, it would not be easy. And depending on what caliber you're going to, you'd have to change out your primer feeding system. And that adds cost. So the cost to change caliber without even having to buy dies on this one is going to run $60 to $100. $100. If you're changing this, let's say I wanted to load a 45 ACP, it would cost $100 before the dies. So then it would cost you about $140. The entire press was $200, essentially making it not cost effective to change calibers on the Pro 1000. It's just not. Unless you already have the dies, I guess, still the pain and the headache that would ensue would not be worth it. This one won't jam. Probably the biggest pro of this is its simplicity, and it doesn't jam. I've loaded 4,000 rounds on this, and it's never jammed once, ever. I've never messed up a round, ever. It's been great. It took me 5 minutes to set up. I just torqued all these down to the right spot, and I was good to go. I haven't touched it since. This one, the Pro 1000, I almost sent back because I couldn't get the thing to chooch. It would jam up so much. And I finally figured it out. I got it all dialed in. Now I'm like scared to touch it because it's doing its magical thing. It does work, and I like it now. But when I first got it, oh, I had such a headache trying to get this thing going. The primers were jamming. The indexing wasn't right, so you'd go to put up and just like clonk, just stuck. Every now and again, if you let your primer feeders run low, like let's say, like right now, if I tried loading it and I don't have any primers in here, and you can see the primers down there, it would jam. This thing only wants to be run with full primers. This guy, it's a manual, they call it the RAM priming system. It can have one primer in there, it'll feed it, no problem. This guy now so much. Yes, this one is slower. Yes, it costs about, you're going to have to run your dice. So it's going to cost about $70 more for your initial investment, but it's so much better. No jamming. 4 holes instead of 3, so you can run your factory crimp die. So much simpler, so much lighter, and better. Now, one thing before I go, I'm going to show you my my system on how I've mounted these. It took me a little bit to figure out. At first, I'm trying to think if I find the holes. I actually drilled into my workbench. I don't know where they're at. I think I filled them in. I drilled into my workbench and I ran my press directly on my workbench. Then what I did is really simply and easily, so I can move these anywhere I want, and I use clamps to hold them in and see if I can do this with, well, I'm actually going to set the camera down. I'll show you what I've done here. I use these clamps to hold it on, not these ones when you're actually moving them. I use the heavier C-clamps. But I countersunk a piece of wood onto the bottom. That way I can take my press, I can move it wherever I want on my bench, and then all I do is take my clamp and I can clamp it on, and it really makes it easy for storage, moving around, or let's say I want more space on my workbench, I'm doing something, I don't want my presses on it, I can just unclamp them, pull them off, or if let's say this is in the way, my Pro 1000 is in the way of my vise, and I'm building an AR, and I want to move it, I just unclamp the guy, I can move it to anywhere I want on the bench, and it made it really nice. So the countersinking worked wonders. But guys, this is really fun. I say I floated a total of about 8,000 rounds. And the amount of money that I have saved with these two presses, I could figure it out with some calculator action, but it's hundreds, if not thousands, It allows you, I don't know if it saves you money. I think it more allows you to shoot a lot more. Definitely doesn't save you money, because now you're buying primers and powder and bullets and you're still spending more money. But I shoot so much more. A box of 357 Magnum is $20 to $30 for a box of 50. I can reload 357 Magnum for about 15 cents a round. So at 15 cents a round, that would be, what, $7.50 for a box of 50? So I'm going from potentially $30 to $7 because I have a press. I can shoot a lot now. It's awesome. Well, there's your quick rundown. Well, 9 minutes, not too quick, but in the beginning I'll let you have it quick. Pro 1000 versus the Classic turret. Get the Classic. You'll save yourself a lot of headache, trust me.